Well, September 11th, I was supposed to work 2020 that night, so I didn't have to be into noon. So I was sleeping. My husband at the time was downtown working already. He called me. It was right after the first plane hit. Damn, I did it again. And so he freaked out because decapitated body hit his window after the first plane hit. And I looked outside. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's not a cloud in the sky. It must have been something. It just is not making sense. I had just woken up. And I hang up with him. My cell phone's ringing, our home phone's ringing, my pager's going off. It's work, get in here right away. I jumped in the shower. By the time I got out of the shower, the second plane had hit. By the time I finally got to work, as I walked into the control room, the Pentagon had just been hit. And shortly after, the next plane went down. So we were all in shock. We didn't know what to do when we're trying to figure out what to do. And ABC Local, they, of course, had all of the crews out, and they have all the microwaves. So they sent me to the local control room, and I sat there, and I was watching all the cameras. And then I had a separate technical director with me patching things through to the network. And I was the one deciding what photos that the rest of the country were seeing. And then I decided, seeing people jump, it was tough. I wasn't there, but, we had 30 cameras that I was watching with all of this stuff going on. So it was almost worse than being there because you're just so much information. And then my husband was there and I couldn't reach him. And the towers went down and I couldn't find him. And I kept calling him. I almost had him on speed dial. And you got to remember, cell phones weren't working. All of the phones were down. And so I just had to keep my composure, work, continue to do that. And it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He finally reached me. And he came up to ABC. I ran out, I gave him a hug and went back to work. And then I spent the next, I had to be there at nighttime, seeing any footage that anybody else had, to deciding whether we were going to purchase it as a network or not, and whether it was viable if we already had that. So it was a tough day. I was on my honeymoon when Katrina happened, and ABC called me to come back to work. So when I got down there, it had already been a couple of days. So I flew into Baton Rouge, and all of the luggage belts where your luggage comes off of, they were filled with people on gurneys, on hospital beds, and people with IVs, that it was a triage center in the hospital. So that was strange to see. We normally wouldn't go out for hurricanes chasing. They wouldn't send us. It would be a local reporter. We'd send the weather people out for Good Morning America. They were always the one that chased hurricanes. Katrina wasn't a hurricane. Katrina was the levees broke, and then they were flooded. So it was a massive flood with massive loss of life. And people were being treated horribly. People weren't allowed out of the one areas. And it's nothing like you've seen, because you're looking up in the trees and you're just seeing people dead in trees and hanging there, and sides of the road where the waters had receded, people have just put a plastic bag over a dead person, or they just had a sheet thrown over, or a little mark, even some things, just like an X, this person is dead. So it was strange. Going through, you looked like you had been in a war zone. And, of course, and we were going down, and we had to travel with armed guards. These guys that we called the Pilgrims. We traveled with them. We had to wear flak jackets. We had helmets on because our lives were in danger. These people didn't know who we were, and they were shooting at us. It is an adrenaline rush. And certain things you're not you don't necessarily think about what your life is in danger. You're thinking about letting the rest of the world know what you're seeing and what's happening. And you feel like it's a service, that, you know, you're bringing the horrors of the world so that other people can see what's happening in different parts of the country, that you're bringing people these stories.